A few weeks ago, I participated in several focus groups in preparation for my new book, Critical Conversations. The stories I heard from those focus group participants weighed on me heavily. I found that relationships are being destroyed, families are broken, and people are just stuck, all because they would rather suffer in silence than have a critical conversation with you that would free them. On Miss Deborah's Tea Room today, we're going to talk about what it means to have a critical conversation with the people who matter most in your life. Stay tuned. Don't go away. Whether you're a husband and wife, sibling, neighbor, or friends, sooner or later you'll need to have a critical conversation that will have an impact upon your future and that of other relationships. Author and therapist Dr. Audrey Chapman recently spoke to us about critical conversations between mothers and daughters.
You're talking to your child all along about all kinds of stuff. And if you're open, a lot of people are very closed, very protective, they're very easily embarrassed, very sensitive to what they think a child shouldn't know or not know when, in fact, the peers are talking about it in school, and they're probably getting the wrong information. So why not talk to them about what you know and give them the right information? What we don't do is have critical conversations all the time. We are not proactive. We're always reactive. We're not into prevention.
Why?
We wait until something is falling apart and then we get hysterical. Do you have two choices? To attend to it when it's just bubbling up and you see something happening. And it may not even be what you think it is, but you start talking and you may talk around it, but you start it because you're starting the process versus shoving it under the rug. Or shoving it over to somebody else to deal with, or pretending it's not true. Eventually it's going to fly in your face.
Like Dr. Chapman says, critical conversations are something we need to have regularly, but people are afraid. That's why I wrote the book, Critical Conversations, to give people the tools to free them so that they can have this critical conversation. Now let's talk about this issue with some of my guests. We have with us Minister Joyce Frazier, who conducts workshops for teens, and poet and playwright Derek Johnson. My third guest, Jakes Morton, creates books and films that address family challenges. Wow, I got through those names. Isn't that awesome? Fantastic. All right. Let's talk a little bit about mothers and daughters as it relates to critical conversations, or as far as I'm concerned, fathers and daughters, fathers and sons. I mean, what's going on?
You know, Deborah, I'm of the mindset that we can no longer afford not to have those conversations. It is so critical that we start having them right away with our children, and primarily because they want to have them.
Okay. So why do you think that they want to have them?
They want to talk about our fears. They want to know the truth from us. They want us to be transparent.
Okay.
They want us to say, hey, I don't have it all together and I've made mistakes. And this is the road that I want you to take. I don't want you to go down the same road that I went down. But that calls for us to be transparent.
That's right, and I think that's, I don't know, what do you think there?
And that's, you mentioned mothers and daughters. I think that critical conversation needs to take place between dad and daughters as well. I'm a father of 2 daughters.
Excellent.
And I can remember one of the most difficult conversations I had with my daughter, who's now 19, a freshman in college, at age 15, talking about sex. It was very uncomfortable, but I was so empowered after it was over. I was uncomfortable, but I did it. And one thing I'm very proud of is the conversations that I have with both my daughters. I have a 27-year-old and a 19-year-old.
So were you transparent?
I thought I was. I thought I was.
Did it work?
Hopefully it has. I don't have any grandkids. I'm not a grandfather yet.
Wow.
So.
That's
And I don't look forward to
fantastic.
being one. And I don't look forward to being one.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So as a barrier, now we know that these are tough conversations. Critical conversations are difficult conversations.
Yes, they are.
So, and we're talking about young people generally at an age that think they know everything.
Exactly.
Talk to me about that.
Well, I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I'm thinking about, I didn't know this was going to be our topic like this today.
Yes.
2 days ago, we had we have a great relationship. She's 13. She's not older than her years, but we talked about hyper-promiscuity, the heritage on both sides of not just
Now that's good.
not just me, not the daddy was hyper-promiscuous, but mommy, your uncle, your grandpa, and
Everybody.
and the construct, the way I set it on the table. We're in the car. I said, look, I need to do things to tell you the mistakes that I've made, so you don't do what I did.
Exactly.
So
That's good.
the abortion topic came up,
Yeah.
and she said, "Wow," but she got over it. But we just have a relationship where I'm gonna give her my truth because I preach this.
Yes.
I'm gonna give her my truth to save her life. And what we see too often,
And that's
is,
good. Save her life.
Yeah, because in our community we've got this mantra of we don't air our dirty laundry.
Absolutely.
That's the worst repressive clinical thing you can ever do, and it leads right to what's called replicative family behaviors. The mother was a teenage mom, the daughter's going to be a teenager, the grandmama was a teenager, the father was an alcoholic, the son, all of these things because we are too afraid, which is a tool of the enemy, to share our truth.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of that, I saw on, I think it's called The Braxtons, it's a reality show. And I saw a scene where the mother had to sit down with all of the daughters and have a critical conversation. Did you see that?
I did see that.
Yeah, it was so powerful. What she did was, she basically said to them, you are disrespecting each other and you're disrespecting me. And we need to sit down and talk about it. And they were, they were at silence. It was, obviously when mom says she wants everybody to come to the table, people begin to shut down a little bit. So my question is, do you think that's an interesting approach?
Well, I think that we learn from our parents.
Exactly.
And we avoid those conversations. I know when I was a child, whenever the critical conversations started to be spoken in a room, and I would sit there and I would tune my ears into what my parents were saying, and when they realized that I was listening, they would say, Joyce, leave the room. Or if the conversation got really, really sexual or intimate, they would tell me to put my hands over my ears.
But now, as a parent, though, let's talk about that a little bit. There are boundaries. If I'm having a critical conversation about sex, and depending on how old you are or what's going on, I may want you to cover your, is that right?
That's right, but then that's also a sign. That's a sign that I'm curious. And then there's a appropriate time for that conversation. You can dismiss me, but I think later is the time to bring me back and to bring it to my level, to help me to understand. But
so that was a flag that a parent should have picked up, that this child is curious.
Everything is learned behavior, and you mentioned it a little bit. We're all kind of in the same generation, and we grew up at a time where you were seen but not heard, oftentimes as young people. And as a parent, I made sure that my kids had a voice, and I expressed this many times before to both of them. And it was one or two times that my oldest daughter said, hey, Dad, you told me that you want to always hear my voice on my opinion about certain things, but here you are shutting me out.
Right.
And I had to adhere and say, wow, my child's listening to me.
That's
but
right.
it is so important to have those conversations because as a parent, like I said, I learned to allow them to express their feelings on whatever it is we may be talking about. Now, there are things that are appropriate and that we need to take a little more time to put it on their level, but we cannot be afraid to have those conversations, because as we watch the Audrey Chapman video, oftentimes we are reactive as opposed to proactive. And that's one of the things that I try to be very mindful of, is being proactive.
One of the things that she said, and you said as well, Jakes, is that I think we have to talk. We just have to talk.
Exactly.
See, if you want to come and have a critical conversation with me and we're not talking.
Exactly.
And I think it depends on the level of conversation as well. So as Audrey would know, there's spaces that are safe and then there's spaces that are taboo. I understand the age appropriateness, but I mean there's certain subjects in our community that we have just repressed, from molestation
That's right.
Absolutely.
to rape
Yes.
to incestuous behavior. Those are tough spaces because you not only have the trauma of the event, but you also have the social response of a community that has disregarded and disengaged itself.
And of course, my director's given me the
Right, okay.
rounded up kind of thing. But the bottom line to all of that is that we don't know how to do it.